You ready for the next big gardening project? We have a plan for this part of the meadow. Now, if you recall, in an earlier video, this part of the meadow was never really dealt with when we were reseeding the native insect meadow. And it's partially because, and I don't know if you could tell from the video, it is on a pretty deep slope, and the grass that Sandra is pulling out is the invasive haplotype, I think it is, of canary reed grass. Great forage grass, but we don't have any animals here to forage it. And it is also the meadow that is facing the Meadow House, and it pretty much grows here and nothing else grows. So there's a couple different strategies that we're doing in order to be able to suppress this grass. One is you'll see that we're solarizing this. So for a whole year, essentially, we're going to be solarizing this grass. It's been, I think, since December. And you'll see it just basically turns to this brown crust. And then after we solarize it, we're going to burn the rest of the biomass off and plant some plugs into it and seed. Back here, we also have the canary reed grass. We have ragweed, things that we don't really enjoy. We're probably gonna do some selective mowing and cutting back. This is the ragweed that's actually starting up. Beautiful leaf, but causes a lot of allergies for many people. So what we decided and determined is let's actually put some trees that could shade out some of this grass area, but also provide a bit of closer distance to your eyes, so when you're actually looking out, you don't just look all the way back. It provides some visual interest. And if we ever do any type of building back here, it will also provide a little bit of privacy in between the Meadow House and any future building, if we get to there. We just always try to think ahead and think of possibilities, even if we don't go that route. So, but I wanted to do trees that are human scale, so they won't get too high. They kind of top off, some of them will top off at about 30 feet, and they won't get that wide either. So for example, this is a cercis. This is not our native cercis, although I'm planting some of our native cercis. This is Cercis chinensis. So as you might imagine from the scientific name, it's from China. And this is a cultivar named Dawn Egolf. Sorry, Dawn, if I'm mispronouncing your last name. I've just never heard it actually pronounced. But it's a fantastic cultivar. And you can't see it here. You might see it on our other cercises, but this was grown in the south. So these leaves have fully unfurled. Right now, our cercis hasn't even budded yet. The flowers haven't even come on, and usually the flowers come out before the leaves. But since this was grown down south, the leaves are already out. So hopefully it is cold hardy enough for here, but it's just grown out of state and south of here. So hopefully it's not going to put out leaves when it's freezing. So that's some of the chances that you take if you don't have something that's grown locally. I don't ever see this cultivar grown locally. So if there isn't a local option, I probably would have bought it. But, and we decided also, Sandra and I decided that we would plant larger trees in this area because this grass does get high very quickly. And we're so sick of planting little whips and mowing them over by accident. What you get with whips though is that you could get, and whips are just like the little stem of a tree with a bare root. You could get those for like $1 to $5. I think that's what we actually bought the whips for. So if you want to reforest an area, go with whips, because you could buy 500 and you spend $500 on 500 trees or 250 trees, depending on how much they are. This you're paying at least $100 for, I would say, on the market, if not more.
How many years has that been growing?
I have no idea. I can't tell you because I don't know the grower who grew this. But in some cases, you know, they supercharge them because they're giving them fertilizer. They're growing them year round. They're in the greenhouse. Even the ones that we bought locally already have fruit on it because they're growing them in greenhouse condition and they've already been fertilized, and yet none of our things even have flowers on yet except for maybe the amelanchier. So, you know, you get like, but I would imagine maybe, you know, at least 3 years would be a guess as to my guess. But at least it's large enough, and you could see I've actually started to plant a few more into the landscape. So I got a head start. And the reason why we put holes in is because we're working on our deer fence and we had a hole digger, and I erroneously thought that we didn't have good soil. But what I realized is once we got past that 2 to 4 inch layer of rock that was on top of these areas, this soil is actually quite nice. Now this is a bit dried out, but when we were digging with the hole digger, the soil is just this nice sandy, loamy material. It has really great aggregate. So I thought we were going to have to amend it a little bit more than we would really need to. And I don't think we do. So this is great. It was very helpful to have the hole digger because it's not like breaking through a little creme brulee. Trying to break through that 2 to 4 inch layer of compacted stone is really painful, especially if you're going to be digging a bunch of holes. And we have maybe 14 to 20 holes that we dug in here. So that's the trees that we're going to be planting. So this is the first one. I actually like that when growers include this little cardboard top on top. I actually include it into the planting because, again, it's just a little weed suppressor material. So kind of cool tip. But
these are 10-inch holes, by the way.
Yeah, 10-inch.
It looks like it's gonna fit perfect.
It seems to fit perfect. Normally, you'll want to do, I'm going to put a little biotone charger in here. These are always usually pretty well fertilized, though, so you don't really have to do that. I might just muddy up this hole a little bit more. Oftentimes, when you're planting these, going like maybe 2 to 3 times the size is good, but I didn't know what size these trees were going to be. I didn't know what size the root ball was going to come in. So I'm just going to dig a little bit more. And if you have any type of clay, just kind of scarifying the edges is really helpful just so the roots could penetrate. But sometimes when you look at this, like, it's a lot smaller than what the whole pot is. So we'll have to get it straight. That's the biggest complaint that Sandra has when I plant. It's never straight. So I'm just gonna put some water in that hole. And you know, we had dug these holes when we had the post hole digger, and I was afraid the water would collect in it or something would fall into the hole. So I just tossed these bags of like compost over the top of them, which is great because then it didn't dry out the soil and protected anything from falling in there. This is a little too deep. Yeah, good catch. And I'm glad we didn't have to fully amend this. Well, when we pack it in, we could try to get it a little straighter. Sonder is the straight tree police. Now, I'm planting this cercis like right in the midst of this terrible grass. So I'm giving myself quite a lot of work this season because I'll be out here with the string trimmer, but we got a new string trimmer that works wonders, and it also has a hedge trimmer attachment that you could do that you're not struggling with. Our other hedge trimmer, you have to hold upright. If you go low, your back is gonna break. This one is designed to kind of cut the grass low. I like the string trimmer attachment. Sandra seems to like the hedge trimmer attachment, so to each his own. Well, I need my hory knife, but I guess I'll use my fingers. I'll get that on the next one. This should also suppress the weeds a little bit, but let me use my little trick. Ugh, I love these. They should just sell these little cardboard pizzas. Now, I don't want to get too much of the compost up on the tree, so I'm going to create like kind of this little donut where it's a bit of a divot here and then a little higher up. And then that way when the water comes, it kind of sits in this little hole and waters the tree. Although this is on a slope, and the water comes all the way down here, so it's not that bad of a deal for this tree. And you could use whatever mix, compost, mulch that you have. It's just that this was really convenient to carry it down and cover the hole with it. It provided a lot less work for me. I just loaded these up in the back of the car. Now I'm gonna just stomp this in to make sure that it's in nice and tight. And I'll tell you, we missed the flower display on this, but it is the most spectacular floral display that you'll ever see on a spring bloomer. And I wanted to have some of that spring bloom that we're gonna see in the interstitial area that we've planted. Again, very similar. We wanted fruiting and flowering trees in that interstitial area. And I kind of wanted the same here. It just provides so much beautiful interest in the spring, and then fruits in the summer or fall, and then also provides a wildlife value as well. And the flowers and the pods of Cercis, Canadensis and Canadensis, are both edible. I mean, it's not the tastiest things, but you could use them like edible flowers and salads. Luckily, we're also going to get quite a bit of rain coming in the next number of days. Sun and rain, so it's going to be a perfect mix, but I got to be out here and watering some of these if they're looking a little limpy, because it's already pretty hot and muggy. But there's one down. We're going to have some more to go. I don't have all the trees for these holes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And I got a head start. I'm sorry I started without you yesterday. I didn't want to plant the red buds right next to one another. I wanted to stagger them. But the form of that red bud is a different form than this one. So this one kind of grows a bit more upright, like this, like a V, with many different branches. And whoa, it grows very small. This one is rounder in shape. So here we go. This is the Oklahoma red bud, and it gets, the Cercis canadensis gets like a purplish red color to the flowers. And this one gets a particularly reddish purple one, so it's a little bit more red than purple. Whew, it's gonna be tough work today. I like to keep these bamboo sticks so that we could use them for little bee homes after. Let's see, this one feels like a pretty full root ball. Yes, it is, but it fits nicely in the hole. We have to position it properly too, because you have to see where we want the plane of the tree, even though it starts to get round. So I think it needs to be facing the other way towards the Meadow House.
Just turn it counterclockwise a bit.
This way, I think. Yeah, this is great soil. I mean, it's a little bit of clay, but look at the aggregates breaking up. I'm pretty surprised because we haven't really done any kind of amendments here. This area we thought was pretty depauperate because of all the stone that was on it, but you can see there's plenty of plants that have decided to grow in here. Okay, let me do this. I actually didn't put any water in the hole, which I typically would have done, but we'll do it now. Yeah, so this is just the Espoma cow manure, and we're kind of out of our bark mulch that we have, and this will act like basically like a compost on top. It's composted manure with some aged bark materials as well. So this will provide a little bit of weed suppression, which we need at least in this area, and will provide a nice slow release fertilizer for the tree, and will help retain some of that moisture. So when it does rain, it can retain some of that moisture for the tree roots, and provides a nice habitat for microbes as well. And like I said, typically whatever you have that you could use, normally I would have like a little bit of bark mulch, but we're pretty much out. We haven't ordered any this season from our local place. And the wood chips we're saving for the orchard area. But this was really helpful just to have these bags, so that, because we dug the holes several days in advance, and I just used the bag to kind of protect the hole in the soil. So I'm creating this kind of donut. So just like built up here, you don't want to tent it up, and you definitely don't want it on the trunk, because then that could invite, because it holds moisture, it could create like a collar rot or some type of bacterial fungal rot. So it could be too much of a good thing. I'm just gonna pour some water in here again. And it's designed so the water will sit kind of around the tree. I failed to put this in too, but I'll just do that. So in the next rain, this is a little biotone. So it has some helpful bacteria. And again, we'll provide a slow release fertilizer. I don't want to put too much. These trees are already pretty fertilized. You could see that they have slow release fertilizer, little kind of colored balls they usually are. And so that should be provided fine amounts of fertilizer going into this. But you won't need to fertilize this after it's in. Your soil system should have enough good nutrients and microbes in it for it to break down those nutrients for the tree itself. So I fertilize once and then I'm done with it. It's for every tree for himself or herself in the landscape. All right, so that's all I'm gonna do today. I'll probably put in a few more. And let me show you some of the whips that we had planted. Deer browse right here, but you can see the little buds coming off. So this is the size of the tree, essentially. It's very tiny. The downside of some of these tiny trees too is it's right within deer browsing length. If the tree is a little bit higher up, the deer have a harder time to get to the buds. Here's another example. This is probably a slightly larger one. This one, for whatever reason, the deer didn't eat. But you can see how tiny they are. They're just really starting out, and it's a bit of a bummer. This one has some leaves on it. I think last time we showed you this, the leaves are just coming out. So, you know, they're not that tall, and it's very easy later in the season when the grass is up to your hips. It's very hard to see these. You get the gist. This is gonna be some of the trees that we have here. I'll show you the other two that I planted. This one is a weeping cherry, and this is the one that gets the simple white flowers all over it. And I was really happy to see the size of this one that came in. I think this is gonna look really beautiful. Oftentimes you'd see these at botanic gardens planted around ponds, so we figured that this one would be nice to be planting next to this pond, although it's not like right up on it. I didn't want to get too wide because this is actually the walking path, so the maximum width will kind of hug the walking path. So I figured that would be a really beautiful one for here. So this one is another Cercis. This is a cultivar called Rising Sun. And it gets, you could see a little bit of the color of the leaves. It's kind of like a bright lime green, but it gets like little yellows and oranges to start. Again, it's something that we missed because this was growing further south. And you can see that there's some things that have branched, the branches kind of snapped in transport. So I'm gonna have to come in here and clip some of the dead branches out. Here's another one. So this is a plum tree, and this actually does get quite large. I'd say this is one of the larger ones that we've planted. It gets about 30 feet high and a little less than that wide. You can see that there are some dead branches that kind of got clipped off in transport. But this one is the Mount St. Helens plum. And I'm looking forward to this one. And again, we brought them in a little bit larger in size so that we wouldn't have to wait for them to get big, nor would we come in there and unceremoniously like chop them off. We could actually see these. One of the next steps we'll have is putting a tree stake in here so that we do see them still, and probably putting a fence around it. I don't think these are going to be ones that deer would attack, but you never know, so it's better to be safe than sorry.
A special thanks to all of our members on this channel who support us in our endeavors. If you're interested in becoming a member, go to our YouTube homepage and click join. And if you enjoy educational videos like this one, then be sure to hit like, subscribe, and the notifications button. Those small actions help us grow, help others find content like this, and allows you to know when a new video releases. And 10% of our Google AdSense proceeds are reinvested back into community-based projects in the Finger Lakes region of New York, and that's matched by our partners over at Espoma Organic. So your support really does go a long way. We'll see you in the next video.